Chapter 11 Marine Hob meet Garp Vice Admiral. 4 more, Naval Headquarters Marineford, a huge warship with dog heads and horns slowly docked into the harbor, then wearing a grey-white suit, a very sturdy figure, messy and sharp short hair, and a scar on the corner of his eye. Carelessly jumped directly from the warship. This marine commander wore a cloak of justice and the epaulets of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral hung on his shoulders. He was very heroic. Garp Vice Admiral, welcome back. A Marine school officer quickly came to the Marine Vice Admiral's side and handed over a document in his hand. That's right, this Marine Vice Admiral defeated the Marine hero Garp, who was almost about to sweep the world by Rock's pirate, in the Gorge of Gods a few years ago. Although Garp was to protect the Celestial Dragons and Roger to jointly do this earth-shattering event, but later in order to write a positive image, of course, it is very natural for the world government to wipe out the existence of the Roger pirates. All the credit goes to Garp alone. And because of these things, Garp doesn't like to mention the honor of the past. Although he is called the Marine Hero, he rarely talks about these past events, so that there is the truth about this matter. Even most Marines don't know much about it. Only the top of the top knows these hidden facts. The guy Garp reached out and took the file with a careless hand. He didn't even look at it. He just signed his name on it. This is a custom of Marine. It means that Garp returned to the Marine headquarters and parked the ship. Here, it is equivalent to the nature of sign-in. Garp Vice Admiral, Sengoku Admiral told us to go to Master Marshal's office as soon as we see you back. Major Marine said quickly. Garp returned the documents in his hand to the Major, and said in dissatisfaction, it really makes people call me. Will you arrange a task for me as soon as I get back? His hero Garp can express his dissatisfaction with cursing here, but Major Marine does not have the qualifications and courage, so he can only smile awkwardly on the side. Garp didn't make him embarrassed either. After a few words of encouragement to this Marine's junior, he stepped forward and walked towards the Fortress of Justice. At this time, in this Marine's Marshal's office, he was also very strong, and General Marshal Kong, who looked like an iron-blooded soldier, was chatting with Zephyr Admiral and Sengoku Admiral. The situation in New World is getting more and more violent. Shiki is really arrogant. Are you planning to kill all of his former accomplices in one go? Kong looked at some of the investigation reports in his hand and shook a little helplessly. He shook his head and said, Marine is indeed the most powerful force in the sea today. There is no one. Compared with the other big pirates, although they are also very powerful, if you make a one-to-one gesture with hard power, there is no one in this sea can wrestle with Marine. And the reason why Marines have not done much in New World, on the one hand, they also know that there must be advances and retreats in the eradication of pirates. Thieves, but it's all about ringworm. Only the big men in New World are the pirates who can really threaten Marine. The pirates in this New World, one-on-one is no problem, but they don't understand the truth of their lips and teeth. It's okay to wipe out some guys in a small area, but once Marine becomes real, they will quickly. This is the most troublesome thing. Once the big pirates are hugged together, Marine is also very troublesome. Even if they fight for the family and win, Marine will also fall into an unprecedented weakness, which will inevitably weaken the control of the sea, and naturally there will be new ones. The ambitions of the United States appeared, and Marine was unable to control it. They would quickly become bigger and stronger. By then, they would just fall into a new reincarnation. So as long as it's not a great time, the Marines also know the tactics of surrounding 3 and missing 1. Anyway, leave a New World for the big pirates as the arena. They toss in it, as long as Marine don't put too much pressure, they will fight on their own. You see, isn't Golden Lion Shiki frantically killing those pirates who disobey him? As for the other side, Marine is seeking stability. They are different from the pirates. The pirates are barefoot. There is nothing to worry about. Naturally, they are not afraid that Marine wears shoes like this. They will be destroyed if they are destroyed. If you accidentally stop playing with yourself, then the world will be over. The responsibilities on this body are different, which makes Marine's various countermeasures look very stable, not seeking merit, but seeking no demerits. And this kind of stability is also necessary. I don't think I need to worry about them now. Isn't Shiki playing with Akoku? Maybe it's going to hurt both sides, then we might see some chance. Sengoku Admiral said with a smile while holding a teacup. Akoku, like Shiki, was a solo boss from Rock's pirate. He was born in the country of flowers. He also has the means. While his own strength is strong, he is also very good at camping. He is different from New World. Ambitious countries are a little involved. They sell arms secretly, start wars, gather rebels and so on. Now he is also the overlord of New World, but he has been spotted by Shiki recently. Maybe soon New World will set off a bloody storm. Those guys like to play, so let them do it. Before the so-called opportunity appears, we have to harden Marine's own iron. Speaking of which, it has been nearly 10 years, right? 3 Admirals Tori. I can't stand up now, this will have some bad effects on Marine's grassroots and the people, and it will make confidence, Zephyr Admiral said softly while drinking tea. Sengoku Admiral and Marshal Kong's expressions were slightly unsightly when it came to this matter. To say whether Marine's 3 Admiral can be made together, it is really possible, Marine is not lacking this talent, but the talent is unable to get this far. Among the senior generals, there are also guys who can take on this important task. For example, the female middle school hero Tsuru Vice Admiral is fully qualified and able to be promoted to Marine Admiral. But the problem is that Tsuru's ambition is not here. Similarly, the Garp Mountain is still pressed on top of Tsuru Vice Admiral. The rest of the qualified people are more or less looking after Garp Vice Admiral's face. After all, anyone with a discerning eye can see that the most satisfactory Admiral candidate for the Generalissimo is Garp Vice Admiral. In this case, jump yourself. Come out and say you want to be Admiral, maybe you can do it in the end, but it always feels like picking up other people's trash. Who can be qualified to take the position of Admiral, who is not a great guy? Who doesn't shame anymore? So this matter was delayed. Finally, it was the protagonist Garp. This bastard was just not right about Admiral. He refused several times in a row to promote Admiral. It made Marine's high-level guys jump, and there was nothing to do with him. Grand Marshal Kong's eyes twitched, and then he said to Zephyr, "Now, since you are talking about it, you can convince Garp later. If you count the time, this guy should come back too. NS. The trip to South Blue, after all, failed to catch the tail of Roger pirates, and I don't know where to hide those dangerous bastards. I always have a hunch that these bastards might bring more Shiki's more troublesome future." Sengoku Admiral frowned and said in a deep voice. That's right, Garp ran to South Blue this time. It was several months after he went, chasing the Roger pirates and jumping up and down, but in the end he couldn't catch the tail and made them hide. They couldn't find the shadow. In desperation, Garp returned after a sweep of South Blue. Future. Marshal Kong whispered softly, and the atmosphere in the office became a little dull for a while. Just when they were silent, the door of the office suddenly banged several times, and then the door was pushed open without waiting for the Marshal Kong to speak. Sure enough, Garp, the hobmeet, walked in carelessly, clasping his nose with one hand, and closing the door with the other, and then asked, "You can't let people rest? Just come back and call me to listen to you." Wrangling, Garp, pay attention to the image anyway. Sengoku Admiral said to Garp very upset. Ha 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 ha, they are all my own people, and they still care about what these vain things do. Garp flew the booger bomb out with one hand. With the strength of the other 3, his vision is of course great, and he seems to have seen the nose. There are traces of shit in the air. Sitting carelessly beside Zephyr, without waiting for them to ask questions, Garp said directly, "It's a failure, those bastards from the Roger pirates ran too fast, and in the end they didn't catch it. Let me tell you. Our warship should also pay attention to the issue of speed." After complaining about the warship, Zephyr put his hand on Garp's shoulder, and then said, "Garp, you can report this matter back to us and see, or talk about us Marine. The internal problems of New World are surging, and we Marine must also be prepared. One of them is to complement the 3 Admiral. Ha 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 ha, I know what you want to say, but forget it, I don't want to be an Admiral. Although Admiral is prestigious, it has become a lot of trouble. I heard about it in South Blue. What happened to Celestial Dragons, and finally you went to the end. How? It was a miserable toss, right?" Garp interrupted Zephyr directly, and happily inquired about Zephyr's previous mission. NS. Seeing this temptation, Garp, the bastard's tone was still so tight, he didn't want to let go of being Admiral at all. Zephyr shook his head helplessly, and stopped trying to persuade him. If persuasion is useful, this matter will not be delayed until now. As longtime comrades in arms, Zephyr and others know very well how stubborn this bastard Garp is. Not at all. If I insisted, I saw a good Celestial Dragons. Do you know Don Quixote Claudius? Zephyr smiled and asked. Garp shook his head, then frowned. As if thinking of something, he said, "Is it the Celestial Dragons who ate devil fruit before? Claudius is not well known, plus he is just a little kid, even the noble Celestial Dragons, but in the eyes of the big guys like Garp, there is no sense of existence, unless it is meat. Therefore, Claudius's only name now is the laughingstock of Celestial Dragons. He accidentally ate devil fruit or something." Between Marine and senior generals, there are occasional reports of Marie-Joy ate trigrams. Garp even jokes some time ago. It's been a long time since this happened. Zephyr nodded, and then smiled and said, "Yes, that's your Royal Highness. He is very interesting. He is different from the rest of Celestial Dragons. Maybe. I always feel that he will deal with us in the future." "Really?" Garp touched his chin and whispered softly. Zephyr saw people's eyesight. He said that he was second among Marines, and no one dared to be the first. Therefore, when he said that, Garp and Sengoku and others also took the name Claudius in mind, and slightly hung their names. Chapter 12 Have to find a way to clean up Durag? One more, in the Holy Land Marie Joye's House of Gods, Claudius is sitting in his study reading a book at this time. Of course he didn't know that he had become famous in the hearts of naval headquarters because of Zephyr Admiral's opinion of him. What Claudius was reading in his hand was the recent period when the butler of Nia gave him some books about the customs of the world, and introduced many more than 170 franchisees under the jurisdiction of the world government. Country's national situation. Slavery has obviously been abolished, but it's not just celestial dragons blatantly violating this decree. Even in the hands of ordinary nobles, there are more or less slaves, Claudius whispered softly. This is no different from his impression. Although Doflamingo is still a kid at this time, the slave trade on Sabayati archipelago did not develop because he was young before entering the market. The slave business there is very good. Celestial dragons often buy some slaves when they wander there. When there is no celestial dragons, the nobles are the biggest gold owners there. For this kind of thing, Claudius has no idea for the time being. Even if he has an idea, he doesn't have the ability. He is not a virgin bitch, and he does everything with a mouth. Except that slaves are prevalent in the dark, basically all countries are now feudal. The king will rule a country and entrust the nobles to manage the country. There is not much difference from the old times in the previous life. This makes Claudius feel a little bit in his heart. Thoughts. Just as Claudius was thinking about these things, a crisp voice came from outside the study. His Royal Highness. Nia whispered while standing outside the door. Claudius recovered from his thoughts and said softly, "Come in." After receiving Claudius' response, Nia opened the door with a very light movement, and then walked in. "Is there any news?" Claudius asked without turning his head. "Yes, Your Highness." Nia nodded in response, and before Claudius could speak, she quickly continued, "In the naval headquarters, there is indeed a Vice Admiral named Durag, although it has not been promoted. But many people in Marine know that he is the son of the hero Garp Vice Admiral." Sure enough, Claudius smiled when he heard the words, and muttered to himself. Garp is a Marine's hero. Although he looks down on celestial dragons like them, his loyalty to Marine and the world government are still sufficient, otherwise he will not be guilty of desperately in the Canyon of Gods. Although this loyalty is a loyalty to the peace under the control of the world government, it is enough, at least the fellow Garp loves Marine very much. As a Marine hero, Garp naturally wants to train his son to become a Marine talent. In fact, as far as it is concerned, he is doing a good job. Durag is now a Vice Admiral in Marine. Woolen cloth. Calculated by age, Durag should be around 20 years old now, probably 23 or 4 years old. Based on his abilities and talents, compare it to his early 20s that his unborn son is unlikely to be as strong as his unborn son. Even without him, Laozi Garp, Vice Admiral at Naval Headquarters should be more than enough. Therefore, Claudius had some guesses about this matter in his mind, and he was not surprised. His Royal Highness, why are you interested in Garp Vice Admiral's son? Nia asked with some doubts. Claudius smiled and said, because this guy is very interesting. After listening to these words, Nia didn't understand the situation. She just had some doubts in her heart. But soon, these doubts were suppressed by her. Since Saint Claudius returned from the New World travel, Marie Joyce has always paid attention. His people all know that his mind has changed a lot, not to mention other things, at least from the bad character that had to make things happen every other day, he has become a quiet guy who can't get out of the second gate. Naturally, Nia knew this too. Although she had doubts in her heart, she explained to herself that Saint Claudius had undergone a major change, and she had matured a lot, and she had become more stable in her work. Of course, Claudius is his family knows about his family affairs, what a major change in his mind, he has completely changed his soul. As for why you need to inquire about Durag's news, of course, it's because he knows that Durag will become a mortal enemy of celestial dragons in the future. Now he should think of a way to find out and see what is going on with this guy now, if he has already dumped it. His dad, Garp, flew solo, and that was a bit awful. Because that means that the guy Durag has completed his thought change on the side of world government and marine, and has set his ambitions. If this is the case, Claudius must quickly find a way to get rid of Durag as soon as possible, and get rid of Durag as soon as possible. That's right, Claudius wouldn't treat Durag with a different look just because he has a great old man on his head. As the so-called buttocks determine the head, whatever position you do, you must do things that adapt to this position. If he was Claudius born again on the pirate, then he would do pirate things, burn, kill and loot, take risks freely, compete for the name of the pirate king, and be at ease, without any problems at all. If he was born again on marine, then he would have to be an admiral, dressed in a cloak of justice and majestic. It's not pleasing to the eye. It's more fun to make a buster call or something. If he was born more than 10 or 20 years later and worked under Durag, he might have devoted himself to the cause of setting off a great revolution and changing dynasties. But these are all ifs. Today, Claudius, neither a pirate nor a marine, has become a celestial dragon that gathers all the splendor and wealth in the world. Then what he has to do is definitely to keep the identity of the celestial dragons. As long as he has the title of celestial dragons and as long as the world government can carry it on, he can enjoy all the beauty in this world. How to choose this kind of thing? Still have to think about it. Therefore, Claudius has decided to become celestial dragons in this life. If anyone dares to ruin his good deeds, he will lose face. Then we must carefully consider how we can keep the nobility of celestial dragons. Claudius knows very well in his heart that even though celestial dragons are dragging like 2 to 5 to 80,000, a group of people are kneeling and kowtow everywhere they go, but in another 20 to 30 years, can the big ship of world government be able to hold it? The storms from the times are really open to discussion. Once the ship of the world government sinks and the celestial dragons class falls, then what Claudius possesses now will all disappear with it. What's more, the change of times requires the liquidation of the rulers of the old era. Now the identity of celestial dragons, when the world government falls, it will be a damn fate. This can be seen by looking at the Dongquixote Huominggu family not far away in the future. This world government has not fallen, but they have given up their identity as celestial dragons, and they have been so miserable by the people. I can't wait to eat their meat and drink their blood, but Huominggu and his family are all considered celestial dragons with a good reputation. They are all tossed into this way. Of course, Claudius also understands that if he doesn't work hard, the future what will it look like? Therefore, for his own sake, Claudius will also work hard to stabilize the celestial dragons class in the future. Combining his memories and opinions about the world in his mind, he can roughly attribute the overturning of the world government ship to several factors. The top priority is Garp and his family. The monkey clan is a bit too much to hang up in this world. From the perspective of the future, this old guy Garp is one of the handles in Marine, standing on the top of Baekdu. His son Darag is still a Marine Vice Admiral, but it is very likely that he will become a great warrior of change at some point in the future, establish a revolutionary army with one hand, and then start his magnificent anti-celestial dragons and anti-world government lifetime. Become the top figure of the Grey Forces, the most murderous criminal in the world. Look at the third generation of their monkey family, which is the protagonist in this world who has not yet been born at this time, Monkey D. Luffy. This guy was born with his destiny. According to his protagonist's luck, if no one cares, he will probably go to the position of One Piece. Look at it again at this time, their third-generation family has taken all of the three ways of black, white and grey. When the times are surging, the world government will be able to pry a shipboard in all likelihood by them. The mast will be broken. Among them, Garp doesn't need to care too much. By that time, he will be old, and he will probably retire. In addition, he has served in Marine and world government all his life. Even if there is a change, he will become the possibility of a real enemy is not high. Therefore, Claudius removed Garp from the dangerous factors from the beginning. It can even be said that he is not only not dangerous, but can also become one of the main ship nails to stabilize the big ship of the world government. After all, he is still a mature man. It's not a problem to work for the world government for another 20 to 30 years. The latter two are very problematic. Diriger will not say it for the time being. Then Monkey D. Luffy Claudius has already figured it out. He is not going to have anything to do with this kid. After all, the protagonist's aura is very cheating, who do you know if you will pit yourself in, so Claudius just needs to watch it first, and once this guy is still walking the old way, then he can't be polite to him. He must give it to him before he has become a so-called 5 emperors. Extinct in the sea. But I still have to give Garp a little bit of face, let him be cool for a while, but before he enters the new world, he must be destroyed, whether it is Alabasta or a nice lobby. Or, well, maybe I flap my wings here, and he won't be able to encounter these stories. Anyway, he is staring to death. As long as he becomes a pirate, find a suitable opportunity to send him to impel down for retirement. After thinking for a while, Claudius made up his mind. Although he still admires Luffy as a passionate fool, but if it is related to his own interests, these appreciations have to stand aside. And then, it's the guy Darag. Once he makes his inner thoughts complete, the three views are established, and he has a set of his own views on the world, then he is simply the enemy of the celestial dragons. Claudius must find a way. Help the world government to destroy this son of the hero for the first time. But now, it seems that this guy is still young, he should be a young man who joined Marine with passion in the future arranged for him by Laozi. In this case, it would be easier to deal with. You don't need to treat him as a mortal enemy from the beginning. If you can guide him ideologically, maybe he can become a force in my hands in the future. Claudius thought in his heart. Although he knows that this guy Darag will have a lot of instability in the future, he might become a mortal enemy, but Claudius is unable to kill him now. After all, he is a 10-year-old little celestial dragons. What can you do? If you need strength, you don't have strength, and if you want power, you don't have power. The most important point is that Durag is not the most murderous criminal now, but the precious son of marine hero Garp. Even if he is lucky enough, he uses some despicable means or something, it is unclear. Rager was killed by the scourge, so can Garp not fight him desperately? Chapter 13 Mingi Kun Light? First use it to fudge Durag. 2 more, Claudius holds a positive attitude towards the future changes in this world. Judging from the general trend of history, this is definitely irreversible. 800 years of rule has created a backlog of many contradictions. When the contradictions cannot be suppressed, it will inevitably set off a rebound, and it is extremely turbulent, which is impossible for manpower to stop. Claudius also didn't think he could be so powerful that he could suppress the wave of the entire era with his own power. Therefore, for the various planning systems of the world government, what should be changed in the future is definitely still to be changed, but Claudius is not prepared to allow himself to passively embrace all this. There are several types of changes. The bottom-up changes will be brought about by the revolutionary army established by Durag in the future. The interweaving of iron and blood will directly change the dynasty. When the time comes, the world government will be a simple one. The organizational structure of China may be able to survive, but the rulers must be unlucky. And another top-down transformation is to allow internal changes to adapt to the changes of the entire era, thereby renewing life. This is the way Claudius has come up with, and he may start from this aspect in the future. Even if there is a change in this world, God should guide the change. Claudius whispered softly. His Royal Highness. Neil looked at Claudius with some puzzlement, as if she didn't know how to respond to these words. Claudius smiled, put down the book in his hand, and said, "Don't care, it's nothing, it's just that I feel it." Waiting for the right time to launch a top-down change and adapt to the wave of the new era is Claudius' plan for the future. But before that, he needs to make more preparations. As the saying goes, power comes out of the barrel of a gun. If you want to make trouble, you must not do it alone. He must have the power to conspire with him. Looking at it now, Durag should still be considered a person who might become his strength. It's just that Claudius is still too young now. If he comes a dozen or so years earlier, maybe he will be able to prepare better. Therefore, before he has a certain strength, he can't do it arbitrarily, nor can he force Durag's affairs. He can only subtly influence Durag's thoughts from certain angles, and let him recognize his own ideas, so that the two of them can. Wouldn't it be a mortal enemy? This kind of thing depends on culture. To put it simply, it's brainwashing. After all, Claudius comes from the era of the information explosion in the previous life. There are still a lot of things in his mind, and he is also a highly educated cultural person. Brainwashing these uncivilized natives should not be a big problem. If there are no accidents, the best solution is to adapt to the times and change the existing system. Among them, the Kunming constitutional system is the most suitable, and the Clearkin power is delegated to the people so that they can feel it. Standing over, and at the same time grasping the invisible great power in the dark, probably it is such a framework. Claudius thought in his heart. When the contradiction has accumulated to a certain point, if you don't want to be overthrown, you will definitely have to give in. The biggest drawback now is that the power of the world government is too great, and celestial dragons have no power restrictions, so that they are lawless. Therefore, Claudius felt that to avoid the fate of being overthrown at the time, the profit should still be transferred, and it is normal for the power to be delegated to the people. But these are all appearances. Before the social productive forces can truly reach equal wealth, there will inevitably be class divisions, but now this class division is too arrogant. Celestial Dragons has made it clear that it is to override everything, that's it. Contradictions are strange. Although Claudius temporarily believes that power should be delegated, he will never change his top class because of this. He wants to stabilize the power of the class during the decentralization. Under the change of the system, he will use wealth to subtly control the power at that time. One reason. To put it simply, it is to use the Kunming constitution as a guise to create a pseudo-capitalism, which divides the original power into light and D times arc. There is no power on the bright side, but the master holds the power of wealth in the dark. When the time comes, the left hand is virtual Kun right, the right hand is real wealth, and then Marine pulls a banner of justice. On the surface, it seems that a huge change has taken place, but in fact, he is still standing on the top. That's enough. Of course, these deepest cores can't let Durag's brains know too much. You have to put a new era skin on this set first. The core ideas, well, it's the easiest to use. The most powerful hold right? This thing is very easy to do. It looks tall, but in fact, it is inseparable from half of Bailey. For Claudius, this kind of thing is best arranged. After understanding these ideas, Claudius wanted to hold on to Durag's help. The first step is clear, the book begins. Durag is still serving as Rear Admiral in Marine, which means that his thoughts have not yet been clearly established, and the three views are still being guided by Garp. That's enough. At this time, before Dorage failed to find his own way, he could rewrite his thoughts with books that resonated with him. Claudius is a cultural man. It is still possible for him to write a book about these natives based on what he has learned in his previous life. But before that, it must be combined with the actual situation of this world to be less exaggerated. Therefore, Claudius will allow Nia to constantly find various books about the world for herself, so as to enrich her understanding of the world. This is just the beginning. First, write a book of his mother's Kaizi and find a chance to be obtained by Dorage without a trace. Arousing his interest is the first step. After that, when I have enough strength and have the ability to walk around, I will go around the world in a practical sense and write a book that can truly impress Dorage. The best way is to publish a book with Dorage and tie him to this kind of thinking. I'm really insidious, tisk. Claudius touched his chin, smiled evilly and thought. It is also to blame for his lack of strength, and for the time being, he has no other ability, so he can only use this cultural man approach, and this is also a choice. Claudius also knows that if there is no strength, everything is empty talk after all. If this road can be passed, it would be the best, but if it fails, then he has to choose another way to protect his own interests. Killing, Claudius murmured again. The first route, the top-down transformation, is obviously the king's road line, the upper and lower ones, to reason with you, to open up the people's wisdom and so on. As for this mass murder, it is obviously hegemony. If this is reasonable or unclear, then in order to protect his own interests, Claudius can only use power as the truth. Who dares to overthrow him, he killed someone first. However, Claudius did all these things for the first time, thinking one by one in his mind. What problems will be encountered in the future is not necessarily true, so I can only take it slowly and cross the river step by touching the stones. But anyway, strength is needed anyway. Claudius smiled and thought in his heart. After thinking about it, she recovered from the chaotic thoughts. Nia was still standing quietly beside her, without disturbing her thoughts. Claudius nodded, and then said, Nia, take my pen and ink. Nia looked at Claudius in surprise, thinking that the Claudius saint was going to practice martial arts a few days ago. Is she interested in literature again? Is it because you want to write a book? But Yude's family is celestial dragons, can anyone care? Don't say that Claudius is writing a book. Even if he burns the book, no one dares to come out and accuse him. Pressing down on these thoughts in her heart, Nia soon prepared Claudius with pen and paper. Claudius picked up the pen and thought for a while, if you want to fool Dorage's idealism, you must use a relatively tall name. After thinking about it a little bit, Claudius made up his mind, and then wrote 2 big characters on the paper, which is civil rights. But after reading it, Claudius froze for a moment. The word was not wrong, but it was really not much different from that of a dog crawling, and I was bored by it. Sure enough, my predecessor is a rubbish. At any rate, I am a nobleman. I don't have any cultural accomplishment. I feel sick when I write a word, Claudius murmured silently in his heart. Then he dropped the pen in his hand and said, Nia, you come. Nia was stunned for a moment, watching Claudius open his mouth and asked, I'm coming? But, Your Highness, I don't know what to write. I'll give you a dictation, you can just write it. I feel disgusting when I look at my word, so I won't be ashamed to take it out. You should write well, right? Claudius said with a smile. Nia nodded when she heard the words, and said, we really have to learn to write well in the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and there are many skills such as piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Claudius is not surprised. After all, he is the steward of celestial dragons. Isn't that more talented? Otherwise, if a certain sage is in a good mood and asks you to play a piano or an erhu or something, if you say you won't, maybe you will be treated as trash and shot to death. That's fine, for me, you are here to write it. Claudius said with a smile. After hearing the words, Nia nodded and sat in the position that Claudius had let out. She picked up the pen and paper, and after writing the word civil rights, she waited for Claudius' words. The people are water, Kun is the boat, the Shurji is replaced, Kun is the rotation of the king, but the people are always there, so water can carry the boat, and can also overturn the boat. The solvable is the most valuable for the people, the next is the Kun, and Kun is the light. Claudius stood behind Nia, his mouth began to twitch. If you want to fool Dorage, the name of the book must be tall and not to mention, and the content in it must be literate, so Claudius is also racking his brains. Can this resonate Dorage's thoughts? Just look at this first step. Claudius said these words whisperingly here, but Nia's eyes, who was recording Claudius' words, were gradually filled with incredible surprise. At first, she thought that Saint Claudius was just getting a fever in his head, ready to write some messy stories or something, or brag about the greatness of his celestial dragons. It turned out not to be bad. When I came up with this set of remarks, Nia was stunned, but it was also due to the words that came out of his Claudius. He is celestial dragons, and he has no scruples, if this is her. What Nia said out of her mouth was heard and immediately was the charge of beheading. This world is all under the hooves of the Tianxiang dragon. Even if the other saints have a better temper, they will regard us as inferior people, but what does your highness say, the training, but the record in her hand did not fall. The more I write, the more I am shocked, and at the same time, my views on Claudius are constantly changing. Originally, the huge and luxurious palace where Claudius lives is called the Heavenly Palace, but this name is too ostentatious. Claudius thinks that before he becomes successful, it is best to keep a low profile, so as not to be caught by 5 elders or even him. Lord Yim, who had never seen it, and didn't know much, was eyeing it. So I changed the name of this Tianxiang Palace, and now it's called Qingqing Palace. People don't know what it means here, but Claudius himself knows very well. This is the Emperor Laoer from the past life. Learned there. It's just that the specifications and architectural style of this palace are somewhat inconsistent now, but Claudius doesn't have the money and time to build a real inner palace, so that's it. The forces, let's fix it again. At this time, in the courtyard of the palace, Claudius was holding a wooden knife in his hand and was constantly waving it forward. The movements were simple but powerful. After these 3 or 2 months of recuperation and exercise, Claudius's height has been raised a bit. After all, he has no worries about eating and drinking. They are all the best things. He also exercises regularly. When he happens to be growing up, he has changed a lot. Soon, it changes almost every 3 or 2 days. The waste temperament on his body was completely gone at this time, his figure returned to a normal state, and his arms and waist had already begun to have neat and dazzling muscles. Claudius hid his upper body naked, and his skin was well maintained. From a distance, it was crystal clear, with no scars at all. His long and flowing pale blonde hair fluttered in the wind, and his original appearance that seemed a little wretched had also undergone a huge change. Maybe it's really from the heart, right? Anyway, Claudius at this time is with sword eyebrows and stars, looks handsome and handsome, among celestial dragons, he is rare and handsome. It's more than 20,000 knives, and your highness still wields his hands and feet steadily without any tremors. He is really talented. Maybe he can really become a great swordsman. At this time, it was not far from the place where Claudius wielded his knives and exercised. There, a burly middle-aged man with a slave collar around his neck looked at this scene in surprise, and muttered involuntarily. He was a powerful guy who was found out of the slaves by Claudius. Before he was caught, he was also a well-known swordsman at sea. Because of this, he was directly hired by Claudius as an instructor for kendo practice, and he didn't need to teach Claudius how great a skill he could teach. It is enough for him to lead the practice of Claudius. After Claudius promised to allow him to regain his freedom as long as he started in kendo, this guy was so excited that he wished to infuse all his life's learning into Claudius's mind, and then leave Marie Joy's this damn place early. This kendo foundation is not much different from Claudius's imagination. The first step is to swing the sword steadily, wherever you point it. If you can't stabilize the direction of the sword, do you still expect to be able to hack someone to death? So this practice is simple, but it seems very boring. Fortunately, Claudius has nothing else to do. It has a degree of relaxation. After practicing the sword, he will polish the basic skills according to the method left by Admiral. With regard to physical fitness, I will study my devil fruit ability in the afternoon, and when I rest in the evening, I will dictate myself, and Nia will record the pioneering work. Therefore, Claudius has been living very fulfillingly every day recently. Even if he is unable to get out of the second gate, he did not feel that he was wasting his time. Listening to the words of the slave of the swordsman, Nia's eyebrows had a sense of pride, and then she said, "Who are you when your Royal Highness Claudius? Great swordsman or something, as long as your Royal Highness wants to be, you will definitely be able to succeed." After showing a few words first, Nia looked at Claudius' handsome figure again, her face flushed slightly, and her heart was a little strange. Celestial dragons basically have 10 or 8 wives. Even if they don't need them, they must be kept at home. In the past, these wives were not kept in the palace of Saint Claudius. However, after Saint Claudius returned from New World, he sent away all the poor women, and so far, it seems that she has not done anything in that respect. Anyway, she has never heard of any little maid going to bed at night. Pass. Therefore, Nia was very strange. Shouldn't it be that Claudius was suffering from any hidden illness during that change? But this kind of thing, she dared to think about it in her heart. Even if she and Claudius are very close now, she didn't dare to ask. If Claudius knew what Nia was thinking, he would probably laugh out loud. This bastard guy from his predecessor did get 10 or 8 wives at home, but it was basically useless, just didn't learn well and ruined others indiscriminately. After all, this Claudius was just a chubby boy before, and he was a 10-year-old kid. What can a real man do? It's just that the celestial dragons in the rest of the family have some wives, and he also has the mind to compare. After Claudius came back this time, his body has changed his soul, so looking at the girls who had been ruined before, I felt annoyed and arranged for them to be sent away. Let's go back to each house, and count him as doing some good deeds. After this, Claudius lived a fulfilling life every day. Hein wanted to improve his own strength in order to stand firm in the future wave, so he didn't want to do these messy things. What's more, he knows very well that he is not old now. If he doesn't want to ruin his body early, he still has to pay attention to this aspect, lest he becomes powerful and loses his physical function in this aspect. Isn't that cheating? He knows very well that there are many celestial dragons in their 30s and 40s. The reason why they have gradually embarked on the path of pervert is because they were opened up too early. They were so young and did not know how to control themselves. Waste, that's why you become violent and moody. It's better for you to relax, and when you get old, you can find a suitable big beauty and come back to be chic. Besides, I have a 0-hour mystery in my body. Isn't it because I want to be as happy as I am in the future? Don't worry about it. Just as Claudius kept swinging the knife and Nia was thinking about these messy things, a very stinky sound came from outside the courtyard. It's been 3 months. How come my cousin is back to health? I often watch him practice swords. How can you feel uncomfortable? Get out of me, or I will kill you. Hearing this sound, Claudius, who was practicing basic kendo, also stopped his movements, smiled helplessly, and looked at the door of the courtyard. Sure enough, a kid with orange sunglasses and short blonde hair walked in very arrogantly, followed by a few only servants. This is not Don Quixote Doflamingo, the little cousin, who else can it be? Doflamingo hasn't come for a while. When he saw Claudius, he said in surprise, "Cousin, how do you feel that you have grown taller again?" Claudius threw the wooden knife in his hand to the ground, then walked to Nia's side, picked up the fragrant towel and began to wipe off the sweat stains on his body. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth, watching Doflamingo as he walked gradually, and he smiled and said, "This body is developing, and you will grow taller and taller in the future, Dover." Really? Doflamingo tilted his head for a moment, but he didn't ask much. After throwing away his thoughts, he grabbed Claudius's belt and said, "Cousin, I will leave Marie Joy's in a few days. I want to play with you in the future. I don't know if I have a chance. You have rested for so long, so you should go out with me? Today, I heard that there are slaves of the giants in the arena. Those people below specially made some powerful beasts and asked them to fight in the ring. This is not common. Come and see with me." Listening to Doflamingo's words, Claudius froze for a moment, and then asked, "I'm leaving in a few days." "Yes, my father said he would leave next Monday and go to North Blue. Many people stopped us, saying that we were betrayers or something, but I don't quite understand it, but since it was my father's idea, there should be nothing wrong, right?" Doflamingo thought for a while and said. Claudius was silent for a while. This Doflamingo has a good relationship with him and is a cousin, so he can't waste this kind of resources. Although he can't stop their family from going downhill, he will give Doflamingo something secret in the future. Yes, there is no problem at all. If appropriate, it is also a good choice to gradually cultivate Doflamingo into your own dark line. Thinking of this, Claudius patted Doflamingo on the shoulder, and said, "How do you say this kid is also my cousin, and the relationship between us is so strong? Don't worry, even if you have any trouble outside, come to Marie Joyce to find me, I will try my best to help you. I know that cousin you have a good relationship with me. They treat me as a betrayer. You don't think so, right?" Doflamingo said with a smile. "Isn't that of course, you are my brother." Claudius said naturally. "Since you are a brother, cousin, hurry up with me to the arena," Doflamingo said, pulling Claudius. I know, can't you go today? You wait for me to change clothes." Claudius waved his hand and said. Then Claudius took his clothes from Nia and quickly put them on with Nia's help. I don't know if Doflamingo also learned something bad from Claudius. Anyway, he didn't wear that awkward bubble hood, nor did he wear the white robes of celestial dragons. They just walked out like this and they met someone they were not familiar with. Guys, maybe they can't recognize that the two deviant guys are celestial dragons. Fortunately, there were a large group of servants behind them, who dared to show off like this in Marie Joyce. There was no one except celestial dragons, which just marked their noble status. While walking, Doflamingo was still talking to Claudius. "After I'm gone, my slaves can't be taken away, so I'll give them all to my cousin, right? I still have 2 mermaid slaves. I spent a lot of money to buy them from the slave market." "Yes," Doflamingo said with a smile. "Are you a mermaid?" Claudius was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, "Then I will thank you very much, Dover." The predecessor of Claudius was a trash with no taste, and he had a lot of slaves with no eggs in his hands. It could be regarded as his mount. But Claudius didn't have the idea of riding on slaves now, because it looked like a mental retardation, so Claudius had long dismissed his slaves who had no use for eggs. They didn't restore their free bodies, and they were sent directly to the servants underneath to sell them. After all, he is now celestial dragons, and he doesn't want to do too many meaningless outrageous things. At this time, there are no other slaves in the house except for those slaves who are somewhat useful, such as the swordsman. This Doflamingo is going away. The mermaid slaves must not be taken away. Instead of being taken and ruined by other mentally retarded celestial dragons, it's better to collect it yourself and seductive at home. A mermaid is a slave, don't have a style, tisk tisk, celestial dragons is really a good identity. Claudius thought evil in his heart. Asterisk Chapter 15 Doflamingo is down. 4 more, in the past few days when Doflamingo is about to leave, Claudius has also slowed down some of his requirements. This time, if he and his cousin are leaving, it is very likely that he and his cousin will go to 2 different lives. Claudius also feels some emotions. Therefore, in recent days, as long as Doflamingo comes to him, he will go outside with Doflamingo. At the beginning of Sea Circle Calendar 1491, Marie Joyce still had a mild climate, and the weather on this day was also very good. It seemed to be a good day for travel. At this time, in the port of Marie Joyce, many celestial dragons are gathering here, and Claudius is the same. It's not a ritual or something, it's just that the Huominggu family, who are somewhat straightforward in the Dongquixote clan, are preparing to leave Marie Joyce, abandon the identity of celestial dragons, and go to North Blue to live their mortal life. Huominggu had an expectant smile on his face at this time, and there was a lot of luggage behind him, big and small. It seemed that he was well prepared. Doflamingo and his younger brother Rosinante are standing on both sides of Huominggu's side, and behind them is Huominggu's wife with a gentle smile, silently supporting his husband. Gushan Huoming, do you really want to understand? A celestial dragon's grandfather who doesn't know which family asked Huominggu with a bit of excitement. I have been thinking about it for a long time, of course I want to understand. Huominggu said with a smile. I really don't know what your mind is thinking. We have lost the face of celestial dragons. Why should we go to the lower realm to live the same life as those low-level humans? The old master celestial dragons asked very angrily. Huominggu still had a very calm expression, with a smile on his face, and said without rushing, what are you talking about? Aren't we all humans too? As soon as he said this, the expressions of the surrounding celestial dragons became a bit ugly. Old sage Huoming, you are slandering the blood of our celestial dragons. We are descendants of the Creator, gods. We are not those damn, lowly, incompetent mortals. The celestial dragon's master was full of anger. Retorted. I think everyone is the same, celestial dragons is just an identity, and it is essentially no different from the rest of human beings. Huom Timesing still said calmly, well, since you are so obsessive, go to your lower realm, but when you leave Marie Joyce, that's when you are deprived of the celestial dragon's identity, don't regret it in the future. This celestial dragon's grand master's tone some tremblingly spoke. Huominggu nodded and said, I have decided and I will not regret it. Standing in the crowd, Claudius shook his head involuntarily when he watched this scene. Huominggu really doesn't leave himself behind when he does things. If it's him, he would leave and would not say anything. So absolutely, instead of this, it is better to use a guise first, saying that it is to experience life in the mortal world, and come back when you feel uncomfortable. If this is the case, it is really not too conspicuous in the Dongquixote family, which is born out of strange flowers. The rest of celestial dragons are slender at best, but they are not considered to be betrayers. But Claudius didn't want to care about anything. He couldn't manage his own affairs. How could he have the intention to talk to Huominggu, who is silly and sweet, about those useless principles? Seeing Huominggu who are still here to talk against the Confucians, the group of celestial dragons who are talking about the 3 corpses violently, and want to look like him desperately, Claudius also wants to laugh. At first he didn't care about Doflamingo, who didn't know how bumpy the road was, blinked and then turned his gaze to the younger Rosinante, who was on the other side. Rosinante is his little cousin of Claudius, but unlike Doflamingo, Rosinante is a good baby, inheriting the innocence and kindness of his father Huominggu. Because of this, Claudius and Rosinante are not very familiar, and their relationship is not as close as Doflamingo. After all, Claudius's predecessor was an innocent bastard, and Rosinante's character must not be able to play with him. Looking at Rosinante, Claudius was also quite emotional. If there is a protagonist's halo in this world, Rosinante must have a halo of teammates. This guy is almost wherever he goes, and basically no one who has a relationship with him is not unlucky. Let's take a look at their Rosinante family. After going down to earth, my mother died of illness. Dad was shot to death by his brother Doflamingo and cut off his head. Then in a series of incidents, he and Doflamingo separated. After that, he became marine somehow, and also the adopted son of Sengoku Admiral. Then this guy didn't learn well and went to be an undercover agent. He almost killed Doflamingo in North Blue. The op-op fruit that was about to be acquired. He also flew, and his potential subordinate, Trafalgar Law, was also cheated and betrayed Doflamingo. That's fine, after all, he was wearing a marine undercover coat, and doing this kind of thing was a bit of a standpoint, but then, he changed hands and gave his adoptive father Sengoku Admiral Miserable, which directly led to Marine in North Blue. The battle on Mignon Island failed completely. Not only did Doflamingo ran away and was not caught, but Marine's main mission, Op Fruit, was also embezzled by him and Trafalgar Law was eaten by him. First he betrayed his brother, then he played with his adoptive father, and then he played and died on the island of Mignon. Claudius, who understands all of this, doesn't know what to say about him. You say he's guilty, but it's not enough. From the perspective of the onlooker, in fact, he did quite well, but he has to learn from those who have been with him. Judging from the people involved, this guy is simply cheating to death. Claudius deeply suspected that if this guy hadn't killed himself on Mignon Island, I'm afraid Trafalgar Law would be miserable if he stayed with him for a long time. And the reason for all this, Claudius thinks it should be because Rosinante is too Madonna. He is not very capable, but has a lot of meddling. He is full of naive fantasies about the world, and he does everything on a whim. Do not consider times whether it will involve people around you. Thinking of this, Claudius withdrew his gaze. He didn't want to have anything to do with Rosinante. After all, he didn't know whether his horoscope was hard or not. If he was affected by his teammate's aura, he wouldn't know. How did it die? Claudius felt a little pitiful about Doflamingo when he thought of Doflamingo going to the lower bounds with this lonely star of heaven. Claudius took a few steps forward and came to Doflamingo, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Oh, Dover, take care in the future. If you have time, cousin, I will visit you." Doflamingo still doesn't know how miserable he will be in the future, so he nodded very happily and said, "Cousin, when you come, you have to bring me something fun." "Yeah, I will." Claudius nodded and said, after a short pause, he said softly, "If you encounter any difficulties, please find a way to contact my cousin. I will definitely help you." Doflamingo nodded happily, and then the two chatted a few more words, such as the slaves that Doflamingo sent him yesterday. Except for the two mermaid girls who were left by Claudius, the rest of the slaves who didn't know what eggs were used, had all been dealt with by Claudius. After talking about some miscellaneous things, after Claudius saw Huoming and the current Don Quixote family patriarch Lancelot say something more, he ended the conversation with Doflamingo. After that, it was very simple. Although Huoming's family is going to go downhill, it is still a member of the Don Quixote family before, and still at the level of the patriarch. Therefore, Lancelot did not do anything disrespectful at this last moment. Instead, he waved his generous hand and asked a group of guards to drive the big boat to send Huoming and his family away from Marie Joyce. Claudius had some thoughts in his mind as he watched this scene. He didn't know if Lancelot did this out of good intentions or whether he was calculating something. Think about it, why are Doflamingo and his family so miserable? The reason is that after they lived in the folk for a period of time, they exposed their identity as celestial dragons, so that they attracted most of the hatred of the folk. As for how this was exposed, Claudius didn't quite know, but at this moment, watching the big ship with the giant hoof of the sky dragon carrying Doflamingo and the others left Marie Joyce, he had some guesses in his mind. Not surprisingly, it was the big ship escorting them to North Blue at this time that exposed their identities, and this ship was used by Lancelot to see them off. Is there any calculation in it? It's really hard to say. But these things don't matter. Claudius didn't intend to be an enemy of Lancelot. Even if it was what he wanted, if it was a conspiracy, it would be great to guard against him when dealing with this guy in the future. When Huoming and his family left, the rest of celestial dragons also dispersed in twos and threes. When some people left, they looked at Claudius with very strange eyes. After all, in the past few months, Claudius has rarely gone out, and basically haven't seen them very much. So although they heard that Claudius is doing some weird things, their impression of Claudius is still stuck in the original mixed eating and so on. The dead pudgy look. Unexpectedly, I haven't seen you in just a few months, this Claudius seems to have become a lot more handsome. The temperament of the body has also changed a little more. Although he is young, he does not look like a waste anymore. On the contrary, he has the feeling of a mature man. It's really strange. It looks good. If you have the chance, try marriage. Some celestial dragons thought so. Although the Don Quixote family has come out all over the world, Claudius also seems a little weird, but in any case, he is celestial dragons, and it seems that the future seems to have some potential, at least looks handsome. The Don Quixote family is also 19 among the celestial dragons family, it is located in the upper middle and upper reaches of the family, and the background strength is also good. Marriage is in times deed a reasonable choice. In fact, even the predecessor of Claudius who ate and waits to die will join the rest of the celestial dragons at some time in the future. This is not because of anything else, but just because he has pure celestial dragon's blood in his body. But what they thought was pretty beautiful, but Claudius didn't bother to pay attention to them. After seeing Doflamingo gone, he waved his hand and went back. Starting today, Doflamingo's interference is gone, and he can calm down and do things well. Chapter 16 To visit naval headquarters? In the palace of Claudius, in the huge pond in the courtyard at this time, there are two very beautiful mermaid ladies swimming happily in it. This is exactly the merman slave that Doflamingo gave to Claudius when he left Marie Joyce 2 months ago, and Claudius kept the two of them here for eye-catching purposes. After nearly 2 months of getting acquainted, these two Fish Clan girls also seem to have learned some things. For example, their new owner is not a guy who likes to torture slaves for fun, and looks a little handsome and treats them too more friendly. At least compared with their previous lives, although they still have not been able to leave Marie Joyce and gain freedom, at least they don't have to wear slave collars around their necks, nor are they locked in huge fish tanks for people to watch, and no one put them. Some fierce piranhas and the like made fun of them to see how they fled in embarrassment. At this time, not far from the pond, Claudius was fighting with a few guys wearing slave collars around their necks, as if they were using actual combat to hone their skills against the enemy. The two little mermaid girls are also lying on the edge of this pond, watching the situation there curiously. Gyli, why do you say that His Royal Highness Claudius is doing these things? Isn't he celestial dragons? A mermaid lady asked her companion very curiously. Another mermaid lady, Gyli, shook her head in confusion, and said, maybe it's because of idleness. When I first came here, I was frightened. I didn't expect that His Royal Highness Claudius was actually a strange celestial dragons. Without torture, let us not say, but also took off the slave collar for us. Having said this, a hope flashed in her eyes, and then she continued to ask in a low voice, Lenny, you said? Will it be possible for His Royal Highness Claudius to let us go home in the future? Lenny was silent for a while after hearing the words, his eyes flashed with hope, and then he said, I don't know, but I always feel hopeful. It would be great if I could go home, I really miss the Fishman Island. Gyli said softly. In the past, they were in the hands of Doflamingo, thinking that it would be good if they could survive. After being here for 2 months, they all felt that they had hoped to go home. If Claudius knew about it, I don't know how funny it would be. Does it look kind-hearted? At the same time, Claudius also punched a gladiator-like slave away, and then his face became a little gloomy. I said, you can let go of your hands and feet and fight with me. You don't need to worry too much. Even if I am injured, you will not be held accountable. Then, why are you still shrinking? When am I playing some fighting game with you? Acting? Claudius asked with a gloomy face. The slaves he questioned were all so frightened that they knelt down in the courtyard, trembling all over, didn't dare to speak at all, they were cold and sweaty. Watching this scene, Claudius felt very upset and disgusted. These slaves have been domesticated too badly. They have lost all courage and hope, especially these guys who are a little bit of force. They must be sent to celestial dragons. Before using it, strict teaching has passed. After all, if you don't tidy up them well, what if you accidentally become aggressive and hurt the noble celestial dragons? At that time, the servants of the domesticated slaves will also die with them. So even if Claudius promised a lot, or even stated that if anyone could beat him, he would restore his freedom or something, these slaves did not dare to actually do it, just like playing some fancy show, just like Claudius fake it. He fought a few pretentiously, then sold a flaw inexplicably and was defeated. On the one hand, they don't have much trust in Claudius. After all, Claudius is celestial dragons. They don't believe that if he wins, he will be restored to freedom. Maybe it's because celestial dragons feel shameful and will kill them. On the other hand, maybe they think that playing with this young master celestial dragons like this, and coaxing him to be happy, can they and others live a little easier? Seeing their disagreeable appearances, like walking corpses, Claudius became more bored in his heart, waved at the butler Nia, and said, send all of them to the arena. Don't let me see these disgusting guys again. N.S. The housekeeper Nia nodded quickly and greeted a few times, and then some guards came and escorted the group of walking corpses out of the courtyard. Then Nia came over with a cup of fragrant tea, and said softly, His Royal Highness, why do you need to breathe with those slaves? Your Majesty, you have already given them a chance. It is because they themselves are not up for it and can't hold it. Good luck, you deserve to be this slave. Claudius reached out and took the tea from Nia, took 2 sips to moisturize his throat, then shook his head and said, poor people must be hateful. I am a slave to be slaughtered. It is not these wastes that I hate, but they don't even have the value of using wastes. No matter how many times I fight with them, I can't really experience the extent of my strength. Claudius has been working behind closed doors for a little half a year, and with constant training, he should have made considerable progress, but no one around him can compete with him. Originally, he wanted to find some slaves to practice his hand. If he could feel improved or something, he would let them free when he was happy, but it turned out to be good. This group of slaves disappointed him very much. In fact, he also thought about concealing his identity, secretly going to the arena to play 2 games or something, but after he told Naya about this proposal, Naya was immediately stunned, and the boss of the arena was called to listen to this. After the proposal, he almost didn't scare to death in front of Claudius. Just kidding, if Saint Claudius is really injured in his arena, his family will be buried with him, and if other celestial dragons find out that Claudius is fighting with lowly slaves in his arena, he is also a place to die without burial. Claudius didn't want to ignore the life and death of other people's family for this kind of thing, so he finally dispelled the idea. Returning the teacup to Nia again, Claudius rubbed his chin for a moment and then said, if there is no other way, maybe I will go to Naval Headquarters. Naval Headquarters? The butler Nia repeated in surprise. Yes. Why didn't I think about it earlier? I concealed my identity and asked Zephyr Admiral to arrange a few potential stocks in Marine for me. How simple is this? Claudius thought about it, and found it feasible. The flashing light came. Although Nia felt a little unreliable, Claudius said so. As the chief steward, she only needed to carry out the will of Her Highness. That's it. Get the phone worm. I need to contact Zephyr Admiral. Claudius said with a smile. Naval Headquarters Malinford, in the Marshal's office, the General Marshal Kong is looking at some documents in his hand. A few months ago, the great pirate Akoku and Golden Lion Shiki had a fierce conflict in New World. The 2 powerful pirate forces fought extremely turbulently, but the situation has become clearer recently. It is the pirate fleet of Golden Lion Shiki that has the upper hand, and Akoku's forces have been dispersed. 8. Perhaps in 1 or 2 months, there should be a victory or defeat between them. Kong thought to himself as he looked at the information in his hand. At this moment, the office door was knocked, and not long after, Zephyr Admiral with a strange expression walked in. Kong looked at him and asked very curiously, Zephyr, what's going on? Is something wrong? Why a strange expression? Something did happen, Marie Joyce has a celestial dragons coming to our Malinford visit. Zephyr touched his chin, still a little weird. Marshal Kong also froze for a while, then he looked for documents on his desk, and then said with some confusion, what's wrong with you? I haven't received such notice. Celestial dragons came to Naval Headquarters Malinford to visit Naval Headquarters Malinford. It's not uncommon, B*UT it rarely appears, often not once in 10 years, but every time, it makes a lot of momentum and makes the grid full, so if this happened, he wouldn't know if he was a marshal. Zephyr smiled when he heard the words, and said, no, it's not an official visit, but a private call bug I received, personal phone worm? Can you still have contact with celestial dragons? Kong smiled and asked. But as soon as he said this, he was taken aback, frowned slightly, and asked, is that, the Claudius of the Dongquixote family? Zephyr didn't hide anything, nodded and said, yes, that Majesty is also weird. He just contacted me inexplicably and said that he would come to visit us at Naval Headquarters, but he told us not to go too far. After preparation, he will hide his identity of celestial dragons and tell us not to leak it. Marshal Kong took a breath, then shook his head and said, we are a private visit? This Highness is really a maverick. I have never heard of celestial dragons visiting like this. Zephyr, did that Highness say what he is going to do? I don't think he is just curious about the situation of our naval headquarters. Come and have a look. Ask me to prepare him some good seedlings of marine, he wants to try his skills, or something. Zephyr said embarrassingly. General Marshal Kong is stunned by this. You have a private visit from celestial dragons to naval headquarters Marineford. Want to fight against people from marine? Isn't this embarrassing us? What if you accidentally hurt you? Do you want to pay for this year's military? This is really beyond my expectation. Marshal Kong finally said so. After thinking about it for a while, he scratched his head and continued, it's better to pick 2 people who will come, and have a good time with that Majesty. Please pay attention to it. Don't lose the face of celestial dragons, otherwise it will be very difficult. Trouble. Zephyr smiled and shook his head when he heard the words, and said, I don't think this is good. Marshal, you have never contacted His Royal Highness Claudius. Perhaps your opinion of him is not so accurate, how to say it, just like I used to be. As said, that His Royal Highness is actually very different from the rest of celestial dragons. I think he really wanted to sharpen himself here this time. If possible, I want to take this matter seriously. Marshal Kong looked at Zephyr Admiral's expression a little strangely, and then asked, why? After all, he is considered half of my disciple. I also want to see if he, as celestial dragons, has grown up in the past 6 months. Zephyr Admiral smiled and said. Marshal Kong was silent for a long time, and finally nodded, and said, you are very accurate to see people, this time I believe you are fine, but if something troubles me, you can go to Marie Joyce and please yourself. Leave it to me. Zephyr Admiral nodded and said with a smile. Chapter 17 Queen Stussy of the CP Institution? 2 more, in the waters near Naval Headquarters Marineford, a large ship flying the flag of world government is slowly moving towards the port of Marineford, which is visible to the naked eye not far away. On the deck of this ship, Claudius looked at the huge fortress of justice in the distance, somewhat surprised. Although I've seen naval headquarters in my previous life, but seeing such a magnificent building in reality, just looking at it from a distance, it seems that I can feel a breath of justice over my face. It's an amazing building, worthy of being the maritime hegemon in charge of justice. Claudius sighed softly. As soon as he finished speaking, the butler Nia gently put a very luxurious-looking mink coat on Claudius's shoulder. His Royal Highness, it's cold here, be careful not to catch a cold. Nia said with concern softly. Claudius smiled and said, don't worry about my current physical fitness. I shouldn't get sick before the sea breeze blows. Otherwise, I came to naval headquarters this time. Wouldn't I be insulting myself? His Royal Highness, your efforts are all in my eyes, and I must be able to win this time. Nia said with a smile. My three-legged cat skills, I still have a bottom line in my heart. It's amazing that I just passed the horizontal line. Claudius said with a smile. At this moment, a young woman with a great figure, a good-looking appearance, and a charming suit walked not far behind Claudius and Nia. Then she bowed her head respectfully and said softly, Saint Claudius, we are still about 10 minutes away from Marineford. Claudius looked back at the woman, nodded, and said, excuse me, you escorted this time, Stussy. It is the glory of our CP0 to be able to escort your highness. Thank you for remembering my name. Stussy still lowered his head and said respectfully. That's right, Claudius is not here this time to show off his celestial dragons. There is no need to fantasize. It's best to be able to hide his identity, because it won't bring anything to those marines who might fight against him. Unnecessary pressure can enable him to better understand his own strength position. But he can't just go to naval headquarters for no reason. Naval headquarters is not a public toilet. Whoever wants to make it easy can come to make it easy. How could he have an identity? So he thought about it for a while, and he thought of the CP mechanism. The CP mechanism is the shield of the celestial dragons, of which CP0 is the most mysterious and is also a unit directly belonging to the celestial dragons. Although Claudius is the most inferior celestial dragons, it is indeed a genuine celestial dragons, so it also has a certain command for CP0. But this is also normal. Think about it. From now on, Charles Rose Saint, who has big ears, drooping nose, and obvious brain disease, can also run around with CP0 in Marie Joyce? Claudius would not hesitate about the power he had in his hands. He directly asked CP0 to send someone over and take him to Naval Headquarters Marineford. At the same time, he also took the CP0 banner. This time he went to discuss with the seedlings of Naval Headquarters under the name of CP0 in the name of Internal Communication, so his current identity is a member of CP0. It was a coincidence that the person CP0 sent to escort him back and forth throughout the entire journey was the Elder Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy, who created the intelligence organization Happy Street in New World in the future. This guy Stussy, in Claudius's eyes, is a monster-like person. Of course, it's not about her strength, but about her maintenance. I don't know what the situation is, she should be a woman about the same age as Charlotte Linlin. Now it can be regarded as Feng Guochunmao, the real age should be around 30 years old. But she looks like a young girl in her early 20s. This is not over yet. After another 20 or 30 years, this guy is still beautiful in her early 20s. This surprised Claudius very much. It seems that time cannot leave traces on her body. Claudius is also very interested in Queen Stussy. After all, she is also a very seductive and beautiful woman, and more importantly, she is very capable and excellent, so Claudius is also thinking about it in her heart. If you have the opportunity, dig Stussy to his side to do something. This question is not very difficult. CP0 is, in the final analysis, the retainer or servant of celestial dragons. Even at this time, Stussy may already be a high-level person in CP0, but as long as Claudius speaks, just do it casually. Can pull her out of this place and act as a personal guard for herself or something. Moreover, Stussy was born in CP0, there is no problem in terms of loyalty to celestial dragons. The only thing worth worrying about is that Claudius needs to be carefully trained to change her loyalty to celestial dragons. Personal loyalty to him Claudius. Just like the current butler of Nia, when she first came, she was just a standard butler from the House of Internal Affairs, but now, she has no other bosses in her heart, only the saint of Claudius, who is also the current Claudius, the only person who can truly trust. Without speaking, Claudius looked at Stussy so quietly, thinking about this in his mind. Before getting a response, Stussy didn't dare to raise her head, feeling a little nervous in her heart, not knowing what the celestial dragons was thinking. After a long time, Claudius also made up his mind. This matter is not anxious for the time being. It is better to contact Stussy first. After all, because of his age limitation, he has no ability to do extra things, and there is no formation of anything that just belongs to. Even if Stussy was transferred out of his personal power and put it beside him, there was no other use besides seductiveness now. Rather than that, it might as well be temporarily fostered in CP0 so that she can continue to absorb nutrients and grow to a more powerful level. After receiving this thought, Claudius smiled and said, I am very interested in beautiful women, so it is normal to remember your name. After listening to these somewhat teasing words, Stussy slowly raised her head, still unchanged, with a smile on her face, and whispered, Thank you for the compliment of Saint Claudius. Well, I'm sorry to trouble you this time. When you get to Malinford, remember that you can't expose my identity to extra people. Just treat me as your subordinate. Claudius nodded and stopped molesting Stussy. He spoke in a very flat tone. Yes, please don't worry, Claudius. Stussy said immediately. Regardless of how Claudius is very interested in Stussy, in fact Stussy is also very curious about Claudius. She is a very ambitious woman, otherwise she will not be able to climb to the top of CP0 in the future, and she will be alone. The Dark World Master is an intelligence force. Saint Claudius, she had also heard about it. She used to know that he was a brainless celestial dragon who was ignorant and would cause trouble all day long. About a year ago, she was inexplicably cheated and eaten. A devil fruit, in the end, almost died in New World half a year ago. But after Saint Claudius returned to Marie Joyce, all this changed. The latest contact made Stussy's original impression of Claudius radically changed. First of all, Claudius' appearance has changed too much. He has completely changed from a half-a-year-old fat man to a handsome little guy. The temperament on his body is different, and Stussy can see that it is different from the ordinary ones who have no hands. Compared with the celestial dragons, the Claudius Saint's physical fitness is very good. He walks with a steady footing. He is alive and well. Obviously he has received the guidance of a powerful expert and can only achieve this through arduous training. Degree of. Moreover, in the words, there is no such feeling of being elevated, unusually approachable, and the beauty butler who followed him can see something extraordinary. It's not that Stussy has not done anything for the other celestial dragons, but no matter who it is, the butler is the same. Only when he is here, the butler seems to be alive. The relationship with Claudius is not only it is the feeling of the master and the servant, which contains some feelings of mutual trust and care. However, these are the details. What surprised Stussy most was the purpose of Saint Claudius this time. He went to Naval Headquarters Marie Joyce specifically to conceal his identity, not to show off his identity, nor to inspect his work. Although this is not his control. Instead, they came to the Masters of Marine to discuss, and want to weigh their own strength or something. This is the first time Stussy has seen celestial dragons come to Naval Headquarters to hone his strength in the CP0 agent career of more than 10 years. This is simply a fantasy. So Stussy was also very curious about Claudius, and was slightly attracted to him involuntarily. The CP0 ship slowly stopped in the Naval Headquarters Malinford military port, and then when the ship ladder was erected, Claudius also slowly walked off the ship. Since I had already greeted Zephyr Admiral in advance, it was not too busy here, and there was no welcome ceremony. Only Zephyr Admiral was waiting here. Zephyr's eyes brightened when he saw Claudius. As a Marine Admiral, his strength is needless to say. Stussy can see the situation, and he can certainly see it. What's more, he is still determined to retire. How about becoming a good instructor Admiral? So Zephyr can tell at a glance that Claudius is not the same as it was half a year ago. He is not the same as he was at that time. He is bloated, has a very good body, has a strong foot plate, and has strong muscles on his exposed arms. Obviously, Claudius did not waste time in the past 6 months. Unlike Stussy, Zephyr Admiral's vision was higher. He was even more surprised that in just 6 months, Claudius Saint had undergone such a huge change. Just looking at it with his eyes, Zephyr got it out of experience. The feedback was great, because he knew that Claudius's current level cannot be achieved by ordinary people in 3 or 2 years of training. What does this show? It shows that Claudius is not only a hard-working celestial dragon, but also a talented celestial dragon. It's a pity, if he is not celestial dragons, with his talent and devil fruits ability, in the future, he might be another Admiral seedling of Sakazuki, Kyuzan and Polisalino, Zephyr, I thought with some emotion in my heart. As soon as he took his thoughts away, Zephyr stepped forward to meet him a few steps, just as he was about to bend down, and when he was about to bow, Claudius' voice came. Zephyr Admiral, it's been a long time. My Highness misses you very much. Ha 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 ha, you don't have to be so polite. Didn't I say it a long time ago? You don't need to be polite when you see me, and this time, I don't use celestial. I'm here as dragons, don't shake me out. Claudius laughed and said. His tone was very close, as if he had a very good relationship with Zephyr Admiral. This also made Zephyr Admiral's heart warm, and he avoided those vain courtesies. He smiled and said, "Looking at your Royal Highness's appearance today, it also makes the old man. I am very pleased." Chapter 18 The Flying Squirrel of the Future, Vice Admiral? 3 shifts, I chatted with Zephyr Admiral all the way, and walked into the naval headquarters slowly all the way, but there was no other big boss to greet him. After all, he wanted to hide his identity. Otherwise, the internal communication with the CP agency is just a matter of Admiral and Marshals gathering together. Whoever changes it will feel that there is a problem. Although they did not come, the big guys like Sengoku and Kong still know the news in their hearts, and they understand that a celestial dragons came to their marine to smash the place. Claudius followed Stussy, looking like Stussy's little brother, not very attractive. Talking and laughing, the group came to Marine's officer training camp. Now this officer training camp has only been prepared for 3 or 2 years. Before Zephyr officially retired, it did not form a complete system. There is no serious instructor. Basically, whoever is free from all walks of life will come and teach. Garb, an old guy who is not stingy, also often mixes here. Today is the Marine's Rear Admiral, Kuzan, who is teaching here. At this time, he is standing on the playground of this officer training camp, and a group of Marine seedlings under his hands are playing military physical boxing in a uniform manner. When he heard the movement, Kuzan saw Zephyr and his group. Just as he was about to say hello, his eyes lit up and he recognized Claudius. However, Zephyr was also quick-eyed, and winked at him. Kuzan instantly understood, pretending that he didn't know anything, smiled and said to the approaching crowd, "Mr. Zephyr, is this?" Zephyr smiled and said, "The CP agency is here to discuss with us internally. This is a seedling cultivated by CP0, called Crow. You can find a few good guys and let them play against each other. It's good to confirm whether there is a big gap between our marine and the CP agency." Kuzan is not a fool, of course, I can understand what this means. Isn't it just that Saint Claudius suddenly came and wanted to talk to Marine's people? So he was also very quick to move, watching the situation in the field, beckoning, and said, "Flying Squirrel, come out." Flying Squirrel? Claudius was a little surprised when he heard the name. He also knew that the Flying Squirrel would be the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters in the future. The strength is not bad, but it is not particularly brilliant, but it is worthy of Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral. The name is, after all, at least it's not a rookie. At this time, the Flying Squirrel is still very young, looking less than 20 years old. The body is very capable and the muscles are very streamlined. In the end, it is worthy of the attention of Naval Headquarters and the Marine that was later cultivated by Zephyr Admiral. The backbone. The Flying Squirrel quickly came to Kuzan and offered a military salute. Then Kuzan said, "Today is the CP agency to come and discuss with our Naval Headquarters. You will go down and show your hands later, don't embarrass us Marine." The Flying Squirrel froze for a moment when he heard the words, then immediately nodded and said, "Yes, everything is for justice." Kuzan nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, Zephyr also smiled and said, "Of course, it's just a friendly exchange, don't kill anyone." Although Claudius said that there should be no restrictions, Zephyr still dare not let the people underneath go too crazy, in case he accidentally kills the Claudius Saint who has no practical experience here. Well, he is even Marine Admiral, I can't eat Kabuto and go. There was no delay. Soon, the training ground was freed up, and the Flying Squirrel and Claudius stood face to face. Claudius is also very satisfied with the Flying Squirrel who came to be his first opponent. I think he can test his upper limit of strength, right? Claudius looked at the Flying Squirrel, and the Flying Squirrel was also looking at Claudius. He was a little skeptical of Claudius's strength. After all, Claudius looked too young, that is, how he felt like he was 15 or 16 years old. In fact, this is due to the fact that Claudius has eaten well recently, drank well, exercised and worked hard, so he developed very fast. In fact, Claudius is only about to be 11 years old. Naval Headquarters Flying Squirrel. The Flying Squirrel first greeted Claudius. Claudius also nodded and said, "CP0, Crow, please advise." After meeting each other, the atmosphere in the field changed a little. Flying squirrels pay attention to preemptive strikes, so they are not polite. As soon as Kuzan's voice of start fell, his feet accelerated and headed directly towards Claudius. Pounced here. In this officer's training camp, the Flying Squirrel is also considered to be the top genius in the ranks. He is very fast and arrives in front of Claudius in the blink of an eye. Then he lifted his foot and kicked Claudius' chest. Claudius didn't follow him and used elemental abilities to avoid it. Facing this foot, he didn't hesitate at all. He also raised his leg and bumped it up front, kicking it towards the Flying Squirrel. Boom! With a muffled sound, the two of them took a step back after parrying. The Flying Squirrel was a little surprised, and he did not keep his hands. After all, in his opinion, it is related to the CP organization and naval headquarters. The agency's face, he didn't want to embarrass Marine. I just didn't expect that this guy who looked a few years younger than himself was really not a good-looking guy, he looked amazing. Claudius was also a little surprised. He kicked each other, but he felt a sharp pain in his calf. It seemed that in terms of hard power, he was worse than the flying squirrel. Think about it, how can flying squirrels be the leader in this session of the officer training camp? They have been Marines for 2 years. Claudius has been tossing for a little half a year. If he unilaterally crushes him in the physical contest, that's it. It's weird. But, the gap doesn't seem to be big. Claudius gave himself a low in his heart. There were many thoughts, and reality was just a moment. As soon as the two of them stood firm, the flying squirrel took the lead in attacking again, slammed his feet, and instantly disappeared in front of Claudius. Shave step, a light flashed in Claudius' eyes. Sure enough, the figure of the flying squirrel appeared behind Claudius in the next second. With his claws in his hands, he grabbed Claudius's shoulders, as if he wanted to subdue Claudius with a single blow. At this moment, Claudius' feet also slammed, as if a shadow of flowers flashed past, his figure disappeared, and the flying squirrel's claw naturally fell through. Sure enough, you can do 6 poses, the flying squirrel said softly, then lifted his leg and swept back, pushing Claudius who appeared behind him a few steps back. He wasn't surprised at Claudius's 6 styles. He's joking. Although the 6 styles are called Marine 6 styles, in fact, it is the CP agency that has become a monk, Marine, and CP. Although the agencies belong to 2 organizations, they are a bit unpleasant to each other, but after all, they are all organizations under the world government. In such matters, they must not be cherished. Therefore, the 2 organizations often communicate with each other on these matters. For example, this kind of more common internal exchanges and discussions is actually a kind of exchange of experience and technology. However, Claudius's 6 forms did not come from the CP agency, but from Zephyr Admiral. In Zephyr Admiral's view, the most important role of the 6 forms is not the ultimate move or the like, but this physical skill. It is a very good basic exercise method to polish people into Superman step by step. On this basis, keep training, even if you don't use the power of Devil Fruit, you will be able to become a first-class physical master when you master Haki in the future. If you can find your own way, it will be even more powerful. He is like that, and so is Garp. So when Claudius asked Zephyr Admiral for something, Zephyr didn't hesitate to teach Claudius all the 6 types of experience and skills he had summed up. Looking at it now, Claudius hadn't ruined his kindness either. Finger pistol. Claudius took a step back and avoided the flying squirrel's attack. Although he said finger pistol on his mouth, he lifted his body back and lifted his heel and kicked the flying squirrel on the chest. But this is not a vain shot, but he is using the power of finger pistol with his feet, just as Rob Lucci uses his tail in the future. The flying squirrel couldn't dodge, and his waist sank on the spot. He took a deep breath and said, "Iron body." Chang! With a sound, as if 2 pieces of metal had collided, Claudius kicked the flying squirrel back a few steps, but did not hurt the flying squirrel. It's a hard body. Claudius thought in his heart. The flying squirrel also seemed to think that Claudius was not an opponent that he could easily solve, so his eyes sank and put his hand on his waist, where there was a saber. One sword flow flying squirrel cut. The flying squirrel yelled, and the sword was shot very fast, and it flew out with a slash against Claudius's chest, which seemed to be combined with the mystery of Tempest Kick. Slash! Claudius was shocked. He really didn't expect that flying squirrel would be able to slash out at such a young age, an ordinary swordsman couldn't do that. But soon, he realized that there was a feeling of Tempest Kick in it. It should be a pseudo-slash, but no matter what, it was very powerful. It caught him by surprise. At the moment when the slash shot, the flying squirrel didn't seem to want to leave room. As soon as he stepped on it, he rushed towards Claudius after the slash, preparing to take Claudius in one fell swoop after the slash. Since he couldn't dodge, but Claudius wasn't ready to hide his strength anymore. As soon as he let off his breath, 2 mists like white smoke appeared under his feet. The next second, that slash penetrated his chest. But it didn't cause him any injuries. The flying squirrel, who had been leaping towards this side, was shocked when he saw this, and shouted, "Logia! Logia devil fruit is very rare, and every time it appears, it is extremely powerful. It is praised by the sea as the strongest devil fruit. In fact, this is not the case. On average, Logia is really strong. Flying squirrels can also use Haki like that. Although he is not skilled, it is enough for him to grasp Logia's entity, but at this time his figure has come to Claudius, and he has no time to change his move." Claudius did not evade, letting the flying squirrel bump into him, then raised his hand and pinched the flying squirrel's neck directly. Just when the flying squirrel was about to struggle with Haki's power, he suddenly found that he could not breathe. It wasn't the forced suffocation of being pinched on the neck, Claudius didn't completely crush him, so that he could not even struggle, but the kind of suffocation that could not feel breathing in the air. The choke of death. Claudius whispered softly. The moment he grabbed the flying squirrel's neck, he had already activated his ability to fill the air around the flying squirrel with rich and invisible nitrogen, and naturally there was no oxygen to breathe him. The panic caused by the suffocation made the flying squirrel lose the opportunity to resist in an instant, his entire face was flushed, and the strength on his body quickly dissipated. At this time, it was too late to resist. Just when he felt that death was coming, Claudius let go, and also withdrew his abilities, took a step back, smiled and said, although some are invincible, but he didn't finish his words here, the flying squirrel panted and waved his hand and said, there is nothing you can't win, but I didn't consider that you might be a capable person. Fight, I'm already dead, so I don't have to find any steps for me. Chapter 19 The Imperial Engine is launched. For more, the flying squirrel is also considered open and upright. His words also made Claudius feel good. He nodded and said, okay, then I will accept the glory of the winner. At the same time, Zephyr Admiral also smiled and said, yes, when fighting on the battlefield, no one will think that such victory is impossible, but that the flying squirrel himself is too careless and the victory is divided. The flying squirrel nodded regretfully, and then stepped back. Claudius was still not happy yet, standing on the court, nodded at Zephyr Admiral. Zephyr Admiral also understood what this meant. He glanced at the group of marine generals in the distance, saw a figure, and said, Jun Commodore, you come and go with the CP0 Mr. Crow. Past. Claudius listened to this, his eyes followed, and he saw a young, beautiful, tall, and very high-looking beauty stepped out of a group of rough men. Yes, Teacher Zephyr. Jun nodded at Zephyr and responded. To say that flying squirrels will be regarded as the mainstay of Marine's achievements in the future, then the Commodore of Jun who ran out now is several times stronger than him. Although Claudius doesn't know her too well, she is also very clear that the future limitation of this female Marine is not in the name Commodore. She will become Marine's Vice Admiral, and is different from the General Vice Admiral. However, Jun will be dubbed Momuzagi and become Marine's Admiral candidate. What does Admiral alternate mean? It is the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral whose strength and abilities are higher than the average. As long as the Admiral position on her head is lacking, she can become a Marine Admiral at any time, bearing the name of Marine's highest combat power on her shoulders. If nothing else, after Kyuzan and Sakazuki's Ice and Fire Island showdown, Sakazuki became the Marshal, and Kyuzan retired from Marine. The two Admiral positions that were vacated should be taken by Admiral alternates, and even automatically promoted. But I don't know what happened at that time. In short, the two Admiral candidates Momuzagi Jun and Chadu Heiji did not choose to be promoted to Admiral, making Marine very passive. Marshal Sakazuki had to start the world government model. Two masters were drawn out, and they were directly promoted to Admiral, making up for Marine's vacancy in the highest combat power. However, this does not affect Jun's strength in the least. In other words, Jun at this time has the potential to become Marine's highest combat power in the future. It is no better than Kyuzan, Sakazuki, and Polusalino. Be weak. Therefore, for such an opponent, Claudius is still very satisfied and excited. At the same time, he also knows that he has to cheer up and deal with it with all his strength. Walking on the long white tall legs, Jun walked in 3 steps and 2 steps, and walked very quickly in front of Claudius. Then he looked at Claudius and said, Naval Headquarters Jun. Claudius also said, CP0, Crow. After the two exchanged names, Kyuzan yelled and started, and then watched Jun put the pale and slender, weak palm that seemed unable to exert force on the hilt of the knife at his waist. With just such a kick, a sword tyrant's aura erupted from her body. The power was astonishing. Not only that, a pitch-black armament haki also instantly entangled from her hand to the hilt of the knife. Claudius watched this scene, and immediately determined in his heart. Compared with the half-baked armament haki that the flying squirrel, the future admiral candidate in front of him cannot be said to be invincible to the master of armament haki, but he is absolutely proficient, his own. Logia's elementalization ability is basically useless, unless she has eyesight and quick hands, and can be elementalized before she can capture the entity. After a moment of silence, Jun suddenly started to do it. She wore a rare famous sword called Jinbira on her waist, which will accompany her all her life in the future. At this moment, the Jinpilua was out of the sheath very quickly. It seemed that the blade hadn't come out of the sheath completely, and a sharp slash had already flown from her hand towards Claudius. Unlike flying squirrel's pseudo-slashes, Jun's slashes are truly swordsman's slash. Claudius didn't dare to be elementalized at all. He was afraid that Jun would once again take the lead while elementalized. Just like the plan of the flying squirrel last time, he didn't think he could kill Jun in a flash this time. The movement in his hands is also not slow. He pulls out the short sword Shinso hanging from his waist. Relying on the indestructible characteristics of Shinso, Claudius directly blocks Shinso in front of his chest. The next second, the sharp slash will knock on Shinso. Although he could not break through the sturdiness of Shinso, the powerful force also passed into Claudius's hands, pressing him back 2 steps abruptly. Looking at Jun, on the other hand, there was a successful smile on the corner of his mouth, and a sudden force was blown under his feet, and he said softly, "Tabit jump." At the same time that the words fell, her speed was like a swift hare, instantly raising several levels. Claudius didn't have time to take Shinso back, she had already arrived in front of Claudius. Shocked in his heart, Claudius stared at Jun Pira in his eyes, but to his surprise, Jun seemed to see through Claudius guarding her knife. He didn't wield the knife at all. An armament haki was wrapped around his foot, and he kicked Claudius on the chest with lightning speed. "Eagle!" Jun whispered. Claudius only felt a pain in his chest, and a strong force came, his feet were loose, and he couldn't grasp the ground. The figure was kicked upside down by Jun, and rolled several times on the ground in the distance. Just stopped. The butler Naya, who was watching the battle from a distance, was shocked and couldn't help but scream. Queen Stussy stopped her and said, "Your Royal Highness does not want his battle to be interrupted. Don't forget, Your Royal Highness. The purpose of this trip, he is not here to play prestige, but to temper himself." The housekeeper Naya was stunned when she heard the words. Remembering what the holy Claudius asked for, she resisted the worries in her heart and stopped her actions. Stussy breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this, and then looked at Jun, who had launched a continuous offensive after the attack just now, took advantage of the fact that Claudius was beaten in embarrassment and jumped up and down to avoid Jun, and said softly, "This Jun Commodore, so strong." Listening to Stussy's words, Zephyr Admiral on the side also spoke proudly, "We, Jun Commodore, are the #1 master in this session of the officers' training camp." According to the old man, if she can maintain this strength and potential, even if it is Admiral's position in the future, it is not impossible to get it. A flash of blood flashed, and Claudius only felt a pain in his chest. You don't need to look at him to know that he was opened in front of his chest by Jinpiluo in Jun's hands. Although it was a bit dangerous, it was not a serious injury. Regardless of his demeanor, Claudius watched Jun kick him towards his head again, his waist lifted back, and the whole person fell straight back, and then a lazy donkey rolled on the ground, very unpleasant. Dodged this foot gracefully, and at the same time, this guy Yu Jun finally took a distance. Not to mention, although this lazy donkey roaming looks very awful and lacks mastery, it is better than practical. Throughout the ages, I don't know how many heroes and heroes have survived by relying on this trick to achieve their own lives. What a great achievement! Claudius drew a little distance here, and it was considered as a fight for himself for some time, but this time was not long. Just as he got up from the ground and stood firmly, he saw that Jun's figure had appeared in front of him again. Jun moved very steadily, with a stab at the head, and he slashed it straight down. It seemed that he wanted to use a force to smash the body of Claudius directly. Claudius had already got a chance to breathe at this time, his body stabilized, his feet exerted strength, and the power of devil fruit on his body was also used in an instant. He pushed up with his bare hands and let out a low growl, as if some kind of power was exploding. Sure enough, a scene that surprised Jun appeared. Jinpiluo in her hand seemed to be blocked by something in the air, and she couldn't cut it down. "This is," Jun murmured in surprise. Claudius smiled at the corner of his mouth and said, "Invisible air shield." As the voice fell, a wave of energy fluctuated in his body again, and Jun's brows wrinkled a little without delay, and he pulled back a distance in an instant. His face seemed a little better. "That's it, you just used this trick to subdue the flying squirrel." Jun looked at Claudius from a distance and said. "That's right." At the moment just now, Claudius squeezed out all the air around him and filled it with rich nitrogen. Although invisible, it was full of lethality, making the air around him a suffocating area of death. "Yes or not?" Claudius replied unclearly. At the same time, the breath on his body began to change. The nitrogen was continuously compressed in the body to form a pressure, which was released at the right time, which could effectively enhance his speed and attack power. Claudius has also thought about using liquid nitrogen, which is a more lethal move, but feels that this is not appropriate. If this move is used, it will hurt too much. If you are not careful, you may give Jun to Jun. Become a disabled person, and may even kill her. After all, in Claudius's cognition, the frostbite caused by liquid nitrogen is irreversible. Of course, if there is a strong healing ability, it should still be able to recover from the injury, or Zoan's awakening ability. Despite these possibilities, Claudius still felt that he had to save himself a hand of cards, so he pressed his mind. It seemed that he felt the change in Claudius's aura. Jun didn't act rashly. Instead, he raised his spirits and carefully observed and guarded Claudius' movements. At the same time, from Claudius's side, there was a sudden violent heartbeat. Boom boom boom. This heartbeat sound is very rhythmic, as if it is beating some drums, and it makes people feel a sense of depression. This is Jun was really surprised this time. She had never seen a person's heartbeat reach this level. She could hear it several meters away. Claudius knew this was the time to pretend to be a match, so he moved his neck left and right, looked at Jun, and said, "It seems that you are an opponent worthy of me to take seriously." I have to say that at this time the Imperial engine started, Claudius quickly climbed in momentum, which was a bit mysterious, and then matched with his very pretentious words, just like when Jun pressed him before. He hadn't been serious about it, and indeed he had fooled the unknown Jun. In the next second, a white smoke burst out of Claudius's feet. With this force, his figure lunged in the direction of Jun at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 20 Shoot her, Shinso. One more, it's fast. Jun looked at Claudius' movements and was startled. At this time, Claudius's speed was more than twice as fast as before. This also made Jun completely believe in Claudius's pretense, thinking that Claudius was truly serious at this time. Just in the blink of an eye, Claudius' figure rushed to Jun's front, raised his hand with a straight fist, and hammered it towards Jun's chest. Jun took a step back, seeming to want to pull this distance away and make Claudius's punch miss. In fact, she did it. Claudius's punch was exhibited, and the distance seemed to be really short. Rub knock at Jun's chest. And just when Jun wanted to seize the opportunity and launch a counterattack, he felt a pain in his chest. The two mountains seemed to have been eroded by invisible power, and they bounced, and then Jun was hit by this force. Flew upside down. At the same time that Jun was knocked into the air, he also understood something in his heart. It is estimated that this is the ability of Crow, the gaseous Logia devil fruit, and it is still invisible to the naked eye, the colorless, odorless and intangible. There is no such thing for her yet. For the people at Master Observation Haki, it's a bit tricky. That's right, Claudius punched it, but it didn't have to hit the flesh to be a hit. The power of the nitrogen and nitrogen fruit was enough to increase his attack distance that ordinary people can't see. With this attack, Claudius didn't have any thoughts of pitying Jade at all, and another white smoke blasted from under his feet. With the explosive power brought by the Emperor's engine, his figure speed increased again and he chased directly. A series of attacks, coupled with the effect of the invisible nitrogen, abruptly suppressed Jun's momentum, and knocked the Jun set that had been crippled just now into the wind. Especially under the obstruction of the unchanged decable nitrogen gas in Jun, it just forced Jun's waist to pull out the Jinpiluo. Suddenly he felt a suffocating force again, and Jun knew that it was because the guy in front of him had already started to deprive the surrounding air or something. Following his fighting ideas, in close combat, he took advantage of all the advantages, Jun thought in shock. First, the colorless and odorless inexplicable gas is unpredictable, and then the air around Vice Admiral can become unbreathable during the battle. This ability is indeed very powerful seeing that he is still young, that is, the appearance of 15 or 16 years old. If he can maintain this state of growth, I am afraid that the future really cannot be limited. The more Jun hits, the more surprised it is in his heart. I thought it was a pretty good seedling in CP0, but it turned out to be good. The opponent's potential and strength are very good, and the combat thinking has begun to mature. In the future, he may be able to become a famous top master. Thinking of this, Jun's heart was cruel. Armament Haki filled his chest, and took Claudius a punch. With this force, he exerted force under his heels and jumped backward, completely pulling the distance between Claudius and Claudius. It seems that you are also an opponent worthy of my seriousness. Jun looked at Claudius and said in a deep voice. Claudius was stunned for a moment. I was just pretending to be a comparison. You want to learn from me? Could it be that what else can you burst out of power that you haven't used before? But after thinking about it, Jun will be a fierce man who can step into the alternate position of Admiral in the future. Therefore, he didn't attack rashly, instead, he raised his spirits and wanted to see what Jun was going to do. I saw Jun take a deep breath, and then whispered, "Rabbit." As soon as the voice fell, the aura on Jun's body changed dramatically in an instant, which was more than twice stronger than before. Not only that, her appearance also changed rapidly. I saw a pair of long rabbits popping out of her head, and a fluffy white ball appeared from the back lumbar caudal vertebra, which seemed to be the tail of a rabbit. In the center of the forehead, a strange line also grew. The pattern, the eyes turned into a pink-peach color. This is exactly the ability of Zoan Demon Fruit Power. Although a little surprised at Jun's change and strength, Claudius had a different meaning in his eyes. This, turned into a bunny girl. Claudius smiled and joked. Listening to Claudius's words, Jun's face turned red, and she was obviously a little bit ashamed. She didn't like to use her ability very much. For nothing else, it was because of the appearance of the rabbit ears and tail. It really made her feel a little bunny, which made her a little bit shy. Therefore, when facing ordinary opponents, she always used Jianhao's ability to deal with it. Only those who can make her serious can activate this kind of power that makes her feel a little shy. So he didn't talk to Claudius. Jun stomped on his feet and rushed towards Claudius very quickly. This speed is so fast that Claudius can't react a little. If you know that Claudius is now in a full state, it can be imagined how fast Jun is. Eagle. Jun whispered. When the voice fell, she had already kicked Claudius in the chest. Unlike before, Claudius took the blow, and at the same time, there was a sharp pain in her chest. At the same time, a blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. The whole person was kicked and flew upside down. Going out, he hit the wall of the training ground with one head, and instantly smashed the wall into a big hole. Alala, Jun is angry, Kuzan joked while standing aside watching the excitement. Zephyr Admiral was also a little helpless when he saw this, but looking at the maid who looked like a housekeeper following Claudius, he still said, "Don't worry, Jun is not a cruel person. Even if you get angry, you won't really ignore it. Of course. I am afraid that your Royal Highness will suffer a bit. If you are unlucky, it is still possible that you can't get out of bed for 3 to 5 days." Claudius was kicked into the root of the wall, and the wall was smashed. He just felt pain all over his body. He has grown up so much that he hasn't been so uncomfortable. Damn it, didn't it just say a bunny girl? As for such a big anger? Claudius thought a little anxiously. Although he felt a lot of pain, Claudius didn't plan to give in. He was still struggling. He opened a piece of masonry that blocked his sight, and saw Jun stomping his feet suddenly and flying into the sky with extremely strong jumping power. Do you think you have learned the palm of the Tathagata? Do you have a palm from the sky? Claudius couldn't help but vomit. But he was spitting in his mouth, and his movements were very numb. He didn't dare to delay at all. With a white smoke coming out of his feet, his hands on the ground supported him, and he rolled out of the ruins. The foot hasn't stood still, the figure of the bunny girl in Jun has landed where he was just now, and I saw that Jun's palm has become furry at some point, turned into a fist, and hit Claudius with a punch just now. Where he lay, a powerful impact burst out instantly, directly overturning the rubble and ruins around the ground, and the place where the fist fell, also collapsed, revealing a huge crack. This woman is really careful. If this punch hits me, I will lie down for 10.5 months if I don't die, Claudius slandered in his heart as he watched this scene. Jun pulled out his fist from the ground, then turned his head to look at Claudius not far away, his eyes full of anger. Claudius swallowed when he saw it, and said, "Don't you say that among Zoan, carnivorous species are so ferocious? You are just as ferocious as a bunny fruit." Jun took a deep breath, calmed down his emotions, and then said, "Since you are an opponent worthy of me to take seriously, I will tell you, I am not a normal bunny fruit. It's an Eudemons." The voice hasn't fallen yet, the figure of Jun has already appeared in front of Claudius by the bounce power of the unknown phantom beast breed rabbit, still with a punch, the posture is like breaking Claudius directly into pieces. What surprised Claudius even more was that there was a bitter chill on this fist. It's really an illusion beast species. Claudius was shocked, and he couldn't take care of that much, and instantly turned his whole body into active elements. Jun's punch passed through Claudius's body with her body, and it didn't cause any damage. What an injury! However, active elementalization is not infinite, and the time that can be maintained is very short. Otherwise, what is the use of haki? As soon as Claudius recovered his state, a white rabbit paw that looked very cute was placed on his shoulder. "Grab your entity," Jun said, standing behind Claudius with a successful smile on his lips. Claudius was shocked and pulled out short sword Shinso from his waist, as if he wanted to backhand Jun back. As a great swordsman, Jun, of course, also guessed what Claudius wanted to do. With his other hand, he pinched Claudius's wrist, and forced the unknown short sword away. Claudius couldn't move his belly. "Do you have any tricks to use, otherwise this battle will be my victory?" Jun was in a good mood, standing behind Claudius, and said. Claudius thought for a while and asked, "Are you sure?" "Humph, play mystery, just use it if you have the ability. My Momuzagi Jun will convince you to." Jun snorted and said. But she didn't really relax her guard, the tight muscles on her body collapsed tightly, and there was a defensive look in her eyes, even though she didn't seem to have a good tone at this time, but Claudius was indeed her approved opponent. "That's right. I didn't intend to use this trick, but your words deeply hurt my self-esteem as a man." Then, Claudius whispered softly. Listening to his words, Jun also fought 10,000 vigorously to guard him, and the strength that held Claudius in his hands was also strengthened, for fear that he would break out again and break free of his restraints. "Shoot her! Shinso!" Claudius whispered in a low voice. In the next second, a light of blood flashed, and a wound was pierced in Claudius's abdomen. Then, Jun, who was standing behind him, had an unbelievable look on his face, because Jun's abdomen was at this moment. It was also pierced by a cold light. Originally, this trick was not so brutal, a stance of to die together, but at this time Claudius has been captured by Jun with armament haki, unable to achieve elementalization, otherwise, the angle is so tricky. Claudius was completely harmless, directly injuring Jun behind him. With mental arithmetic and unintentional, Claudius was ready to take a knife a long time ago, but Jun was not prepared for this, so while Shinso penetrated them, Claudius also launched a counter-attack, breaking free from the restraints. And squeezed Jun's wrist with his backhand, changed his footsteps, and came directly to Jun's back, buckled her wrist around her waist with his backhand, and Shinso in his hand also touched the corner of his mouth and overflowed blood on the neck of Jun. Claudius said weakly, "Now, you forced me to use this trick, now you lose." Asterisk.